The royal court blamed Elira Vale for the sickness inside the dying wolf pup because servant girls were easier to punish than bloodlines. They dragged her into the moon hall before the evening bells finished ringing. Not by chains. Chains were for criminals with names worth recording. Elira was brought by the oath cord around her wrist, a thin silver thread that burned whenever she resisted. She had worn it since childhood, since the palace took her in after her mother's death and made mercy sound like debt. At the center of the hall, on a bed of white fur and crushed moonflower, lay the smallest royal wolf Elira had ever seen. The pup should have been beautiful. Instead, sickness had hollowed it. Its fur was silver white, but dark blue veins crawled beneath the skin at its ribs. Each breath came shallow and bright, glowing faintly through its nose before fading into the cold air. A ring of noble healers stood around it with golden bowls, moon salt, and frightened faces. No one touched the pup. That was how Elira knew they feared it. High Moon healer Vera Solm turned toward the court, her white robes falling perfectly around her like snowfall that had learned obedience. Her face was calm, polished, almost sorrowful. Almost. The sickness began after the servant entered the nursery passage, Vera said. A murmur rolled through the nobles. Elira lifted her head. I was sent to clean the lamps. Without permission to approach the royal chamber. The lamps are beside the royal chamber. Vera's eyes sharpened. Yet the pup began glowing after you passed. The word glowing moved through the hall more sharply than sick. Elira looked at the pup again. It did not look poisoned. Not exactly. It looked misplaced, as if something too large had been folded into a body too small to hold it. Then the pup whimpered. Elira's oath cord tightened. She bit back a cry. On the black throne beneath the moon banners, Alpha King Ronan Draven finally moved. He was a dangerous man even in silence. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black armor, shaped with wolf-bone silver, dark hair falling over eyes the color of storm-clouded steel. But his face was not cruel in the easy way nobles were cruel. It was controlled, locked, as if grief had once tried to break him and found the door barred from inside. Beside his throne stood Lady Marielle Voss, the council's chosen bride candidate, dressed in pale blue silk with a moonstone collar at her throat. She looked at the dying pup with perfect sadness. Then she looked at Elira with relief. Elira understood. Someone had already been chosen to carry blame. Ronan's voice cut through the hall. Was she seen touching it? Vera bowed. No, Majesty. Was she seen entering the royal chamber? No, but servants know hidden ways. I know lamp halls, Elira said before fear could stop her. Not royal cradles. A few nobles hissed. Vera's gaze cooled. Boldness does not prove innocence. No, Elira said softly, but fear does not prove guilt. The hall went still. Ronan looked at her then. Truly looked. That was worse than being ignored. His attention felt like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath. What is her name? He asked. Vera hesitated. That hesitation hurt more than any insult. Elira Vale, Elira answered for herself. Lady Marielle smiled faintly. A servant with a voice. How rare. Elira lowered her gaze, but not before she saw Ronan's hand tighten on the throne arm. Vera lifted one golden bowl. By nursery law, the suspected carrier must hold the moon-sick pup before the court. If the sickness belongs to her, it will return to its source. Elira's stomach turned cold. Everyone knew what that meant. Moonsickness did not merely kill. It entered the lungs, turned the blood silver, and left the body glowing after death. They wanted the pup pressed into her arms so the court could watch whether she died first. Bring her forward, Vera ordered. 2 guards pushed Elira toward the moonflower bed. The pup's breathing changed. Not louder, closer, as if every weak breath had begun reaching for her. Elira stopped 1 step from the bed. The oath cord burned, forcing her knees to bend. She knelt before the pup while the court watched from a safe distance. Vera lifted the small wolf with gloved hands. The pup whimpered. Ronan rose halfway from the throne. Vera froze. For 1 heartbeat, everyone saw it. The feared Alpha King almost stepping down for a creature the court pretended was only a royal ward. Only a pup. Only an animal. Then Ronan sat back slowly, his jaw hard enough to cut stone. Elira saw pain in his stillness. Vera placed the pup in Elira's arms. The moonstone ring on Vera's finger dimmed exactly when the pup's veins brightened. For one breath, the blue sickness inside the pup moved toward the ring, as if answering a leash. Elira saw it, so did Ronan. The pup should have burned cold. Instead, it was warm. Too warm. Its little body trembled against Elira's chest, fragile beneath the silver-white fur. Dark blue veins pulsed under its skin, and every pulse answered the oath cord around her wrist. Elira gasped. Not from pain, from recognition. She had felt this once before, in a dream she never told anyone. Moonlight trapped under skin, crying without sound, searching for a body that had not yet learned how to breathe. The pup lifted its head. Its glowing nose touched the hollow over Elira's heart. The oath cord around her wrist snapped. A ring of moonlight burst across the floor. Every healer's bowl cracked. Lady Marielle stumbled backward, one hand flying to her moonstone collar as it darkened from within. Inside the collar, a tiny silver breath twisted like something trapped behind glass. Vera whispered, "Impossible." The pup opened its eyes. They were not the eyes of an animal. They were royal gray, storm-bright, and ancient, painfully like the king's. Then a voice sounded inside Elira's chest. Small, sick, alive. Not Luna, not pup. A voice too old to belong in such a fragile body. Elira. Across the hall, Ronan went utterly still. His wolf shadow rose behind him for the first time, vast and black, staring at the pup in her arms with terror and recognition. The pup pressed closer to Elira's heart. This time, the whole court heard the voice. She carried my first breath before I had a body. The moon hall forgot how to breathe. Elira remained on her knees with the wolf pup trembling against her chest, its glowing nose still pressed over her heart. The words it had spoken hung above the court like a blade no one dared touch. She carried my first breath before I had a body. No one understood it, but everyone feared it. Alpha King Ronan Draven came down from the throne. Not quickly, not wildly. Each step was controlled, but the wolf shadow behind him was not. It moved like something starving that had suddenly smelled blood, vast and black, its silver eyes fixed on the pup in Elira's arms. "Say it again," Ronan commanded. Elira's throat tightened. "Majesty, I did not speak." "I know." The answer struck the hall silent again. High Moon healer Vera Solm moved before Ronan could come closer. "Majesty, step back. The servant may be channeling the sickness." Ronan did not look at her. The pup spoke from her heart. A sickness can imitate voices. Elira looked down at the pup. Its eyes were half open now, storm gray and too old, but its body was still failing. The dark blue veins beneath its fur pulsed weaker than before. Every pulse tugged at Elira's chest as if a thread ran between them. She whispered, "It is not sickness." Vera's face turned cold. "You are not qualified to name royal illness." "No," Elira said, "but sickness does not search for a body." The pup shivered. The moonstone ring on Vera's finger dimmed again. This time, Ronan saw it clearly. His gaze dropped to her hand. "Remove the ring." Vera went still. Lady Marielle stepped forward at once, her moonstone collar shining too brightly against her pale throat. "Majesty, the healer's ring is part of the nursery rite." "So is truth," Ronan said. The collar at Marielle's throat flickered. Inside the stone, the tiny silver breath twisted harder, like a moth beating against glass. Elira saw it and felt the pup's fear sharpen. "There." The word came through her chest, small and old. "There?" Elira lifted her eyes to Marielle. The noblewoman's perfect sadness cracked. Vera noticed and turned sharply. "Enough. The servant must be isolated before the sickness spreads." 2 guards stepped toward Elira. The pup growled. It was a fragile sound, too weak to frighten anyone by itself. But Ronan's wolf shadow answered. The black shape surged forward, and both guards froze, as if claws had closed around their throats. Ronan's voice lowered. "No one touches her." Elira should have felt relief. Instead, fear moved deeper. He was protecting the pup, not her. The court knew it. Vera knew it. Even Elira knew it. She was only the arms holding the impossible thing. But the pup pressed closer, and the voice brushed her again. "Not arms. Door." Elira's breath caught. A door for what? Vera raised her golden bowl. Moon salt inside it began to glow blue. Majesty, if you delay, the pup dies. Ronan turned on her. Then heal it. I cannot, while the servant carries the source. The source. The word stung. Elira looked at her oath cord lying broken on the floor, the same cord that had bound her since childhood. It had snapped when the pup touched her heart. Not burned away. Not cut. Recognized. Ronan stopped before her. Up close he was more frightening, not because of his armor or crown, but because his control was breaking by inches. His eyes stayed on the pup, but pain lived behind them like a locked animal. What did you mean? He asked. Elira shook her head. I do not know. You said sickness does not search for a body. I felt it. She swallowed. The blue light inside him is not trying to kill him. It is trying to fit. A murmur rippled through the court. Him? Marielle whispered. Ronan heard. So did everyone. Elira looked down, horrified by her own word. She had not meant to say him. She did not know how she knew. The pup opened its eyes wider. For one heartbeat, the moon hall vanished from Elira's sight. She saw a hidden chamber washed in cold moonlight, a silver cradle, a black wolf kneeling beside it, wounded and silent. Vera's ring above a newborn wolf shadow, pulling a strand of glowing breath from a tiny chest. Marielle's collar opened like a small prison. The breath was sealed inside it, while the empty body below began to glow blue. Elira gasped. The vision shattered. Ronan caught the movement. What did you see? Vera's voice cut in. Delusion. Elira looked at the healer's ring, then at Marielle's collar. The pup is not sick, she whispered. His wolf soul was put in the wrong place. The court erupted. Ronan went still in a way more terrifying than rage. Whose wolf, soul? The pup whimpered. Elira's heart clenched. She did not want to answer. She did not want to be the mouth that tore open whatever secret the king had buried. But the pup's tiny body trembled harder, and the blue veins under its fur began to fade toward silver. Dying. Still dying. Elira looked up at Ronan. Yours, she said. Or something born from yours. Marielle made a strangled sound. Vera's golden bowl cracked in her hands, and the moonstone ring on her finger bled blue light into the break. Ronan turned slowly toward the healer. Before he could speak, the moonstone collar around Marielle's throat burst open with white light. Marielle screamed, as if something had been torn from her own throat. The trapped silver breath flew across the hall. It struck the pup in Elira's arms. The pup arched, eyes blazing royal gray. And from Elira's heart, the ancient voice spoke again. First Father. The words struck Ronan harder than any blade. First Father. Not king. Something older than blood and stranger than inheritance. The moon hall remained frozen around him, but Elira felt the tremor that moved through his wolf shadow. The vast black shape behind the Alpha King lowered its head toward the pup, not in obedience, but in recognition so painful it almost looked like grief. Ronan's voice came low. Explain. No one answered. Marielle stood with both hands pressed to her throat, where the shattered moonstone collar hung in broken silver claws. Her face had gone white. A thin line of silver light still trembled between the collar and the pup, fading slowly into Elira's chest. Vera recovered first. Majesty, the servant is manipulating the court through forbidden moon breath. Elira looked down at the pup. Its body was still too warm, still trembling, but the blue veins had faded from its ribs. Not gone, faded. As if whatever had struck it from Marielle's collar had returned one missing piece, but not enough to make it whole. She did not manipulate the collar, Ronan said. Vera bowed her head. The collar reacted to the sickness. The collar held breath. The healer's face tightened. Elira heard what Ronan had not said. Whose breath? The pup's glowing nose pressed harder over her heart. The ancient voice brushed through her again. Weaker now. 3 pieces. Elira swallowed. There are more. Ronan's eyes cut to her. More what? She did not want to speak. Every word made the court stare at her, as if her skin had become a doorway for something unnatural. But the pup's tiny ribs fluttered beneath her palm, and silence felt like watching it drown. More breath, she said. The part in Marielle's collar was not all of him. Marielle shook her head. No, I wore what the council gave me for the Luna presentation. I did not know. Vera turned on her sharply. Be silent. That was mistake enough. Ronan saw it. The entire court saw it. Marielle's fear shifted into anger. You told me it would make his wolf notice me. A murmur broke through the hall. Ronan stepped toward her. Marielle backed away, tears bright but useless. You said the king's wolf was too wounded to choose. You said the collar would carry a harmless echo. A bride candidate repeats too much when frightened, Vera said. Ronan's hand closed around the hilt at his side, and a healer hides too much when guilty. Vera's moonstone ring pulsed blue. The pup convulsed. Elira gasped as pain tore through her chest. Not her pain, the pup's, or the thing inside the pup that still had no proper place to breathe. Ronan moved toward her at once. This time, he did not stop himself. He knelt before Elira in the sight of the whole court and placed one hand beneath the pup's small body, not taking it, only steadying its failing weight. His fingers brushed Elira's wrist. Heat flashed through her. The oath cord mark around her skin glowed pale white, then vanished. Ronan saw. His eyes narrowed. Your oath mark is gone. Elira stared at her wrist. The cord had ruled her life for 12 years, burned when she spoke out of turn, pulled when she walked too far from service halls, tightened whenever she dreamed of leaving. Now there was only unmarked skin. The pup whispered inside her heart. First nurse, unbound. Vera's face changed. Not fear now. Recognition. Take them to the nursery vault, Ronan ordered. Vera stepped forward. Majesty, that chamber is restricted. To whom? To all but sworn moon, healers. Then I will watch you open it. The healer's mouth flattened. Elira understood before the guards moved. The nursery vault was where the missing pieces were, or where Vera had hidden whatever made the pup glow blue and call from a stranger's heart. Ronan stood, but his hand remained near Elira's shoulder as she rose with the pup in her arms. He did not touch her again. Yet every noble noticed how close he stayed. So did Marielle. Her gaze dropped to Elira's bare wrist with hatred she no longer bothered to hide. They crossed the moon hall under a storm of whispers. Servant witch. False Luna. Breath carrier. Ronan heard them. His jaw hardened, but he said nothing. Elira wished he would, then hated herself for wishing. Kings did not defend servant girls. They defended evidence until it either served them or condemned itself. The nursery vault lay behind the throne, past a door carved with sleeping wolves. Vera touched her ring to the lock. Blue light bled from the stone, and the door opened before Ronan could ask why a healer's ring carried the same color as the pup's sickness. Inside waited a chamber of silver cradles. All empty. All except one. At the far end, beneath a veil of dark moon silk, something glowed faintly in a small glass vessel. The pup lifted its head. The voice inside Elira's heart became a cry. There, Ronan pulled the veil away. Inside the vessel floated a strand of silver breath, curled like a sleeping wolf. Beside it lay a black nursery tag engraved with one word. Ir. Elira stopped breathing. Ronan looked at Vera. The Alpha King's wolf shadow filled the vault behind him, enormous and shaking with rage. Then, every empty cradle began to rock by itself. Every empty cradle rocked, as if invisible pups were breathing inside them. Elira stepped back, clutching the moon-sick pup so tightly it whimpered against her chest. The sound was small, but the cradles answered with a slow, hollow creak that moved down the nursery vault like bones remembering lullabies. Ronan stood before the glass vessel, the black nursery tag in his hand. Ir. The word looked too small for the ruin it carried. Vera's face had turned smooth again, but not calm. Smooth like ice over deep water. Majesty, she said, that relic is unstable. Ronan did not look away from the strand of silver breath floating inside the glass. You told me there was no air. The vault went still. Even the rocking cradles slowed. Elira's breath caught. Marielle stood near the door, pale and trembling, one hand still at her broken collar. Her eyes darted from the vessel to Ronan, then to Vera, as if she had just discovered the game she had played was older and darker than she understood. Vera bowed her head. I told you what the council confirmed. No, Ronan said. You told me the birth failed. The pup in Elira's arms shook. The voice inside her heart whispered, not failed, divided. Elira looked down. The pup's eyes were fixed on the glass vessel. Its small body leaned toward it, but the blue veins at its ribs darkened the closer it reached. "It wants that breath," Elira said. Vera snapped. "Do not interpret royal relics." Ronan turned on her. "She heard it before any of us. She is a servant. She is standing with the heir's breath in her arms, while my healer explains nothing." The words struck the vault like a drawn blade. Marielle whispered, "Heir's breath?" Ronan looked at her, and whatever tenderness politics had ever asked him to pretend was gone. "You wore part of it around your throat." Marielle flinched. "I did not know what it was." "But you knew it was meant to make my wolf choose you." Her silence answered. Elira expected Ronan to rage. He did not. That was worse. His wolf shadow lowered behind him, vast and black, its silver eyes fixed on the glass vessel. The shadow looked wounded in a way Elira understood. Not bleeding, but emptied by something taken too early. Ronan reached for the vessel. Vera moved. Not toward him. Toward Elira. Her moonstone ring flashed blue, and every cradle in the room slammed still at once. The oath cord marks carved into the vault floor lit beneath Elira's feet, forming a circle around her. Pain closed around her wrist, where the old cord had vanished. The pup cried out. Ronan spun. "Vera," the healer's voice hardened. "Do not open that vessel, Majesty. If the breath returns wrong, the pup dies, your wolf breaks, and the throne falls into a succession war before dawn. And if I do nothing, then the sickness takes one malformed vessel, and the kingdom survives." The words landed like poison. One malformed vessel. The pup trembled harder. Elira felt something inside her answer, not power, not yet, but fury so clean it steadied her. "He is not malformed," she said. Vera looked at her with sudden hatred. "You do not know what he is." "No," Elira said. "But I know what it feels like when people call survival a mistake." Ronan's gaze flicked to her. For the first time, Elira saw the king not as throne, armor, or danger, but as a man hearing his own grief, spoken by someone who had no right to know it. The glass vessel pulsed. The silver breath inside uncurled. The cradles began rocking again, faster now, though no hand touched them. The pup pressed its glowing nose to Elira's heart. The vault disappeared. A vision opened. A woman lay in moonlit sheets, weak from birth, her hand clutching Ronan's black sleeve. His face was younger, raw with terror. At the foot of the bed, Vera held a newborn wolf pup wrapped in white cloth. The pup's body glowed blue. "The air cannot hold both breaths," Vera said in the vision. "His body will die unless I separate the first breath from the flesh." Ronan's younger voice broke. "Save him." Vera's ring flashed. The newborn arched without sound. Silver breath tore from its chest. The mother screamed. Then the vision twisted. Vera did not place the breath back. She sealed one piece into a glass vessel, one into Marielle's moonstone collar, and one into a silver oath cord around a sleeping servant child's wrist. Elira saw herself, small, curled on a straw pallet in the servant's wing, the oath cord glowing faintly over her hand. The vision shattered. Elira stumbled. Ronan caught her elbow before she fell, and this time he did not pull away at once. His face had gone pale beneath the shadows. "You carried it," he said. Elira could barely breathe. "Not by choice." The pup pressed closer. The ancient voice trembled through her heart. "She kept me alive." Vera's circle flared blue. Elira cried out as the marks tightened around her wrist like a new cord. Ronan's sword came free. "Release her." Vera lifted her ring. "Open the vessel, and you kill the heir." The glass vessel cracked by itself. Silver breath leaked through the fracture and curled toward Elira. Marielle backed away. "Vera, what did you bind to her?" The healer's calm finally broke. "The part no royal body could survive," she hissed. "The pain, the first hunger, the breath that teaches a wolf how to live." The silver breath reached Elira's lips. The pup's eyes blazed storm gray. Ronan stepped between her and Vera, sword raised, wolf shadow spreading behind him. But the breath did not stop for the king. It entered Elira. Her knees hit the floor. The pup in her arms gave its first true howl, and every cradle in the vault split open. The cradles split open like old secrets breaking their teeth. Moonlight poured from each empty bed, thin and silver, rising in small ghostly shapes that never fully became bodies. Tiny paws, unopened eyes, wolf breaths that had been stored, divided, and hidden until the nursery vault looked less like a royal chamber and more like a graveyard for almost lives. Elira knelt in the center of it, one hand pressed to the stone, the pup shaking against her chest. The silver breath inside her hurt, not like sickness, like hunger. A newborn's first hunger, the first terror of entering a world too cold, the first desperate reach for warmth, milk, heartbeat, scent. It moved through Elira's ribs as if it had been waiting years to remember what a body was. She choked on a sob that was not hers. Ronan dropped beside her. Elira. Her name in his mouth sounded wrong. Too careful, too late. She looked up at him through watering eyes. He was never sick. Ronan's face tightened. He was starving, she whispered. Not for food, for himself. The pup gave a broken whine. Ronan reached for him, then stopped before touching. That restraint cut through Elira more deeply than command would have. A king could order anything in this room, yet he hesitated before his own hidden heir, as if afraid his hands had already failed him. Vera's laugh came thin and sharp. Beautiful, she said. The servant feels one breath and thinks herself wise. Ronan rose slowly. His sword remained in his hand. You divided him. I saved what could be saved. You hid him from me. I hid your weakness from the packs. Vera lifted her moonstone ring, blue light spilling through its crack. An alpha king with a half-born heir and a wolf unable to recognize its own blood would have been torn down before the next full moon. Marielle stood behind her, shaking. You told my father the collar would help me bond with the king. It did help, Vera said coldly. It held enough of the heir's breath to stir his wolf toward you. Ronan turned his head. Marielle shrank under his gaze. You tried to make me choose stolen breath. Tears spilled down her face. I wanted to be Luna. No, Elira said, voice raw. Both of them looked at her. The pup's first hunger burned under her skin, but the words came clear. You wanted to be chosen without being known. Marielle flinched as if struck. For one breath, Elira almost pitied her. Then the pup convulsed. The blue veins returned, darker than before, spreading across its ribs and throat. The ghost breaths above the cradles bent toward it, pulled by Vera's ring. Elira clutched him tighter. Vera's eyes gleamed. The first hunger cannot stay in a servant body. It will tear her open, then return to the ring. Let it happen, Majesty, and we can still seal the air properly. Ronan's wolf shadow snarled. But Elira understood the trap before he moved. If you strike her, she said. The ring pulls him back. Ronan's sword halted. Vera smiled. There it was. Control, dressed as healing. Murder, named stability. Elira looked down at the pup. His tiny nose glowed against her chest. Dimmer now. The ancient voice came again. Not words this time. Need. Elira had spent her whole life feeding other people first, carrying water before drinking, mending sheets before sleeping, swallowing hunger because servants who asked too loudly were called ungrateful. This hunger was different. It did not want to take. It wanted to live. She pressed her palm over the glowing nose. Show me where the rest is. Ronan stared at her. Elira? No. The warning surprised her. So did the way her heart answered it. You said he dies if we wait, she said. He is not the only one at risk. For a moment, the vault was silent except for the rocking of broken cradles. Vera's smile faded. Elira realized why. Ronan had not said the servant. He had meant her. The pup breathed once against her hand. Moonlight opened beneath Elira's skin. A mark appeared over her heart, a small crescent cradle wrapped by 3 white wolf tails. Vera stepped back. No, she whispered. Marielle stared. What is that? Ronan's wolf shadow lowered its head, not to the pup this time. To Elira. The ghost breaths above the cradles turned with it. Vera's ring flared violently, pulling blue sickness toward her, but the light inside Elira's chest answered brighter. The mark did not burn, it sang. Not a song. A lullaby. The broken cradles stilled. The pup stopped shaking. Elira saw a door behind the farthest cradle, hidden under layers of moon silk and old nursery prayers. On its surface was carved the same crescent cradle mark, now glowing beneath her collarbone. There, she breathed. Ronan looked. Vera moved first. She threw the golden bowl at the hidden door. Blue light exploded from the ring into the bowl, racing toward the carved mark like poison through water. Ronan caught Vera by the wrist before she could finish the rite. His grip was iron. "Open it," he said. Vera smiled through pain. "Only a moon nurse can." The vault turned cold. Elira stood with the pup in her arms, every eye on the mark over her heart. The hidden door opened by itself, and from the darkness beyond it, a woman's voice whispered, "My daughter has finally brought him home." The hidden door opened, without sound. No hinges groaned. No lock broke. The moon silk covering it simply unraveled and fell away like old fog, revealing a narrow passage lit by pale blue flame. The air beyond smelled of milk, rain, and dried lavender. Elira could not move. "My daughter." The words had entered the vault softly, but they struck deeper than any accusation. She had spent 12 years with only one version of her mother, a tired woman who had died owing palace debt, a woman the servants remembered in fragments, if they remembered her at all. Quiet hands, kind eyes, too much coughing near winter. No one had ever said moon nurse. No one had ever said heir. Ronan stood beside her, one hand still locked around Vera's wrist. Who spoke? Vera's face had gone rigid, not confused, terrified. Elira saw it, and the last fragile mercy she had given the healer vanished. "You knew my mother." Vera's mouth tightened. "Many women served this palace." The voice came again from beyond the door. "Not served, guarded." The pup in Elira's arms lifted its head. Its blue veins pulsed once, then dimmed as if soothed by the sound. The mark over Elira's heart glowed brighter, the crescent cradle and 3 white wolf tails shining through her worn dress. Ronan released Vera only to shove her toward the guards. "Hold her!" The guards seized the healer's arms. Vera did not fight. That frightened Elira more than struggle would have. Vera was waiting for something. Marielle stood near the broken cradles, pale and silent, her shattered collar hanging loose. The tiny silver cuts on her throat glowed where the stolen breath had torn free. "Did you know about this room?" Ronan asked her. Marielle shook her head. "No." Her voice cracked. "I knew the collar was meant to help your wolf notice me. I knew Vera said the heir's breath was dead. I did not know it was alive." Elira wanted to hate her fully. It would have been easier. But the pup whimpered again, and Elira understood something bitter. Some cages were made of silk and moonstone instead of oath. Cord. Ronan looked toward the passage. "We go in." Vera laughed once. The sound was low and ruined. "You cannot enter a moon nurse chamber with a blade drawn." Ronan's sword remained in his hand. "Watch me." He stepped toward the doorway. The blue flames bent inward. The door did not close, but the air hardened before him. Ronan struck it with one shoulder and stopped as if he had met invisible stone. His wolf shadow snarled, filling the vault, but even it could not pass. Vera's smile returned. The old laws remember what kings forget. Elira looked at the pup. It looked back with storm-gray eyes. Not fear now. Need. She stepped forward. Ronan turned. "Elira." There was warning in his voice. And something else. Something that made Vera's eyes sharpen. Elira held the pup closer. "If my mother is in there, I am going. She may not be alive." "I know." The words hurt less than they should have, maybe because some part of her had always known death was not the cruelest way to lose a mother. Silence was. She crossed the threshold. The air did not stop her. It opened. Inside was a moonlit nursery smaller than the vault, circular and quiet. Silver bowls lined the walls, each filled with still water. Dried herbs hung from the ceiling. At the center stood a low bed covered in white linen, and above it floated a woman's shape made of pale breath. Elira's heart broke before she saw the face clearly. Her mother, not young, not whole. A memory preserved in moonlight, worn thin by years of waiting. "Elira," the breath, woman whispered. The pup shivered in her arms. Elira's voice failed. The memory smiled with sorrow. "You were so small when they bound the first hunger into your cord. I could not stop them. I could only teach your blood to carry it without dying." "Why?" Elira whispered. "Because the heir's body was failing. His wolf soul had been torn into 3 breaths: pain, name, instinct. Her mother's gaze moved to the pup. You carried pain so he could keep breathing. Marielle carried name so the court could be deceived. Vera kept instinct in her ring so the heir would obey whoever she chose. The pup growled weakly. Outside the chamber, Ronan's voice cut through the barrier. Vera. The healer said nothing. Elira looked at her mother's breath. Why me? Because you are Moon, Nurse Blood. We do not heal by taking sickness away. Her mother's voice trembled. We give lost wolf, souls, a path back to themselves. The silver bowls along the wall began to ripple. In each one, Elira saw a different memory. Her mother hiding a glowing cord beneath Elira's blanket. Vera stealing the ring from a dead Moon, Nurse Elder. Marielle's father, kneeling before Vera with a marriage contract. Ronan, younger and broken, being told his heir had no true breath left. Elira turned toward the doorway. Ronan stood beyond the invisible wall, seeing only flashes, but enough. His face had gone pale with rage. Vera suddenly moved. She tore free from one guard with impossible strength, her cracked ring blazing blue. The hidden chamber shook as the blue flame above the doorway turned black. Elira's mother looked past her. She is calling the instinct back. The pup screamed. Not a whimper. A true scream, sharp and wolf-born, tearing through Elira's chest. Vera raised her ring outside the chamber. If I cannot place the heir, I will empty him. The pup's body convulsed. Elira held him tighter, but moonlight began spilling from his nose, his eyes, his mouth. Her mother's breath form reached toward her. Daughter, listen. The first breath must be returned willingly. If you force it, both of you break. Elira's tears fell onto the pup's fur. What do I do? Her mother's answer was soft. You sing him home. The blue sickness surged toward Vera's ring. Elira closed her eyes, pressed the pup to her heart, and opened her mouth. The lullaby that came out was not one she had ever learned. But every silver bowl in the Moon Nurse chamber began to sing with her. The lullaby rose from Elira's throat like moonlight remembering water. It was soft at first. Too soft to fight Vera's ring. Too soft to hold back the blue sickness dragging itself from the pup's tiny body. But the silver bowls along the chamber walls answered her, one by one, each adding a thin note until the hidden nursery filled with trembling harmony. The pup stopped screaming. Its body still shook, but its eyes found Elira's. Storm gray, ancien, terrified. She held him closer. I have you. Outside the doorway, Ronan stood against the invisible barrier with his sword lowered now. Not because he had surrendered, but because steel had no place in a room that answered song. His wolf shadow pressed beside him, vast and black, its muzzle almost touching the threshold. It could not enter either. Yet when Elira sang, the shadow's silver eyes softened with a grief too old to belong only to the king. Vera's ring flared. The blue sickness pulled harder. Elira felt it hook beneath her ribs. Not only the pup's pain now, her own. Every year of the oath cord, every command swallowed, every night she had slept hungry beside warm palace kitchens. Every time someone had called her fortunate because servitude came with a roof. The first hunger knew those places inside her. It fed on them. Her mother's breath form hovered near the low bed, fading at the edges. Do not take all of it into yourself. Elira's song faltered. The pup gasped. Vera laughed from the vault. There is the truth. Moon nurses were never saints. They were vessels that cracked quietly so royal wolves could survive. Ronan turned on her. You bound a child to my heir's pain. I gave your heir time. You gave yourself control. The black flame at the doorway thickened as Vera lifted her ring higher. And I kept the throne from collapsing under your grief. You would have burned every council house in Ravenglen if I told you your heir lived divided. Ronan's face went still, the kind of stillness that made guards step back. You should have told me, he said. You were not fit to hear it. Elira's voice nearly broke under the weight of the song. The pup's blue veins were shrinking, but the light inside Vera's ring was growing. Instinct, her mother had said. Vera held the part that taught the wolf where to belong. Without it, the pup would breathe but never fully live. Elira looked at Ronan through the doorway. She has the last piece. I know. She will not give it. No. His answer was quiet, brutal. The pup pressed its nose to her heart. First breath keeper. The words moved inside her, clearer now. Not servant. Not carrier. Keeper. Elira changed the song. She did not know how. She only followed the pull in her blood. The lullaby became lower, older, threaded with command so gentle it did not feel like command at all. The silver bowls tipped by themselves. Water rose from them in shining ribbons and circled the room. In each ribbon, a memory opened. Moon. Nursewomen kneeling beside newborn wolf heirs, drawing fever into moonlight. Wounded pups finding their breath beneath careful hands. Kings bowing outside nursery doors because old law allowed no crown to command a first breath. Ronan saw. So did the guards. So did Marielle, standing pale among the broken cradles. Her eyes filled with something like shame. I wore his name, she whispered. Vera snapped. You wore what made you useful? The words landed too sharply. Marielle looked at her, and something in her face changed. The last remnant of noble obedience cracked. Elira's song shook the collar fragments at Marielle's throat. A silver thread still clung there. Not breath now, but memory. Marielle touched it. The pup's eyes flashed. Do not, Vera warned. Marielle laughed once, broken and disbelieving. You said I was chosen. I said you could be. You meant worn. Vera's ring blazed blue. Marielle ripped the broken collar from her throat. Bloodless silver light spilled over her hands. She cried out, but she did not let go. The last thread of the pup's name tore free and flew through the doorway into the moon nurse chamber. It struck the pup's forehead. The small wolf arched in Elira's arms. His fur brightened. Not enough, but more alive. Ronan's wolf shadow gave a low, shuddering growl. Vera's face twisted. Foolish girl. She thrust her ring toward Marielle. Blue light lashed out. Ronan moved before thought could follow. His sword cut through the air, not at Vera's hand, but through the black flame feeding the threshold. The barrier cracked. Pain flashed across his face, and his wolf shadow howled as if the blow had split through its own spine. But the doorway opened wide enough for one breath. Only one. Elira understood. She lifted the pup toward Ronan. Call him, she said. Ronan stared at her. I do not know his name. The admission broke something in him. Elira's mother whispered, Then give him the first one. Ronan stepped to the cracked threshold. His armor scraped against the invisible wall. Blood ran from his nose, dark against his mouth, but he did not retreat. He looked at the pup, not as king, not as alpha, as the man who had been told there was nothing left to love. Live, Ronan said. The word entered the chamber like thunder held in both hands. The pup's body went still. Vera screamed and clutched her ring. The moonstone split down the center. From the crack came a dark blue wolf shape, no larger than a breath, fighting to return to the ring. Elira sang the final note. The blue wolf shape turned. It saw the pup. It saw Ronan. Then it leapt into the moon nurse chamber and vanished into the pup's chest. The pup inhaled. A full breath. A real breath. Every silver bowl shattered. Elira collapsed backward, still holding him. Ronan broke through the threshold and caught them both before they hit the floor. For one breath, king, servant, and pup were tangled in moonlight. Then the pup opened his eyes. They were no longer ancient. They were young, alive, and fixed on Ronan. The tiny wolf made one soft sound. Not a word this time. A first howl. Outside the chamber, Vera's broken ring turned black. The first howl was small enough to fit inside a palm. Still, the palace answered. Deep beneath the moon hall, old stones trembled. Above them, somewhere beyond the hidden nursery and shattered vault, wolves began to howl back. Not the trained court wolves, not the noble shadows chained to bloodlines, but something older, sleeping in the bones of Ravenglen. Elira lay half against Ronan's armor. The pup pressed between them, its tiny chest rising and falling with a rhythm that finally belonged to itself. A real breath. A living breath. Ronan did not move. For one impossible moment, the Alpha King only stared at the pup, as if the world had placed a piece of his heart in Elira's arms and dared him to touch it. Then his hand lifted, stopped. Elira saw the fear in that hesitation. Not fear of the pup, fear of failing it again. The pup solved it for him. It stretched one trembling paw, and placed it against Ronan's wrist. The king closed his eyes. His wolf shadow lowered behind him, no longer snarling, no longer starving. It curled around the hidden chamber, like night guarding a cradle. Elira should have pulled away. She did not. The pup's warmth had settled against her heart, and Ronan's arm still supported her back. Neither of them spoke. The silence was too fragile, too full of things that had not earned names yet. Then Vera laughed. The sound came from the vault beyond the broken threshold. Low. Vet. Wrong. Ronan's eyes opened. Vera stood among the cracked cradles with her blackened ring, hand pressed to her chest. The moonstone on her finger had split completely, but something dark moved under her skin, crawling up her veins in thin blue lines. "You think breath returned means life restored?" she said. Marielle stepped back from her. "What did you do?" Vera smiled at the pup. "What all healers do when kings refuse wisdom. I prepared a second remedy." The broken cradles around her began to glow blue. Not silver. Blue. The light crawled through their cracks, rising in thin threads that twisted toward the pup. Elira felt them before they touched him. Hunger turned inside out. A pull meant not to feed, but to empty. Her mother's breath form flickered beside the bed. She bound the failed breaths. Elira struggled upright. "What does that mean?" "The almost lives," her mother whispered. "The first breaths she stole from every royal nursery death and kept beneath this room." Ronan rose slowly, helping Elira stand without taking the pup from her. His face had gone colder than the black stone outside the chamber. "How many?" he asked. Vera's expression did not change. That was answer enough. Marielle covered her mouth. The blue threads thickened. The pup whimpered, and the newly restored light in its chest flickered. Elira stepped back, clutching him close. "They are pulling him apart again." "No," Vera said. "They are calling him into proper order. One heir cannot live when so many royal breaths were wasted before him." "Wasted," Ronan repeated. The word held death in it. Vera lifted her ruined hand. "Do not pretend horror now, Majesty. Your court buried weak heirs for generations. I only learned to use what your bloodline discarded." Ronan's sword came up. This time, the moon nurse chamber did not stop him. But Elira did. She caught his arm. He looked down at her, anger burning through grief. "Move. If you kill her now, those breaths stay trapped. They are killing him. They are crying." The words surprised even Elira. She looked at the blue threads again. They were not only reaching for the pup, they were reaching for the lullaby, still trembling in the broken bowls, reaching for the mark over her heart, reaching like hungry hands from dark cradles. Not monsters. Not curses. Infants who had never been sung home. Vera saw understanding dawn on Elira's face and sneered. "You cannot carry them all." Elira's mother's breath form dimmed. "She is right." Ronan turned sharply. "There must be another way." "There was," the memory said softly. "It died with the moon. Nurses." Elira looked at the pup, then at the broken cradles, then at the king who stood close enough to protect her, but not close enough to decide for her. A strange calm entered her. All her life, the palace had taught her to carry burdens in silence. Water buckets, linen, blame, pain tied into an oath cord and called gratitude. But this was not the same. Those burdens had been forced into her hands. This one asked. Elira lifted her chin. "Open the nursery doors." Ronan stared at her. "To the court?" "To everyone." Vera's face changed. "Do not." Elira held the pup tighter. "They called this sickness. Let them hear what sickness sounds like when it has names." Ronan's chaza held hers. Suspicion had not left him entirely. Pain had not either. But something stronger moved between them now. Not softness, not love, not yet. Trust under fire. He turned toward the threshold. "Open every door between this chamber and the moon hall." The guards obeyed. Stone doors groaned open one after another. Cold court air rushed down into the hidden nursery, carrying whispers, fear, and the scent of hundreds waiting above. The blue threads recoiled from it. Vera screamed, "Close them!" Too late. The sound of the court poured in. Elira began to sing again. This time, the lullaby did not stay hidden. It climbed the stairs. It entered the moon hall. The nobles fell silent as the song brought the blue threads after it, each one carrying a tiny breath, a lost howl, a name no record had kept. One by one, the glowing threads rose around Elira. The pup pressed its nose to her heart. Ronan stood at her side, and above the highest cradle, the oldest blue breath opened its eyes. The oldest blue breath opened its eyes above the cradle. They were not wolf eyes. They were infant eyes, pale with a life that had never reached morning. The moon hall above fell silent as the breath rose from the hidden nursery in a thin, trembling shape. It drifted past Elira, past Ronan, past the pup curled against her heart, and climbed the open stair toward the court that had called it sickness for generations. Then another blue breath followed, and another. Soon the air was full of them, small, unfinished lights, each carrying a faint sound, a hungry cry, a broken first inhale, a name whispered once and erased before ink dried. Nobles backed away as the lights entered the moon hall. Some covered their mouths. Some lowered their eyes. Some looked not frightened, but guilty. Elira kept singing. The lullaby hurt now. Every note pulled at the place beneath her heart where the crescent cradle mark burned bright. The pup's nose stayed pressed to her, grounding her, but she felt the old breaths reaching for her as if she were the only warm doorway in a frozen world. Vera smiled through her pain. I told you, they will crack her. Ronan stepped closer to Elira. Stop. She shook her head. Elira. The sound of her name in his voice almost broke the song. Almost. If I stop, she whispered between notes, they go back into the dark. His jaw tightened. And if you continue? She did not answer. Her mother's breath form faded beside the hidden bed, nearly transparent now. Do not carry them alone. How? Moon. Nurses were never meant to replace the dead. Her mother's voice trembled, only to lead the lost home. Vera's ring hand twitched. The blue breaths jerked toward her. Elira understood too late. Vera did not want the breaths healed. She wanted them gathered. If Elira called them all into one place, the healer could bind them again, stronger than before. Ronan, Elira breathed. He saw Vera move. His sword flashed, but Vera struck the floor first. The blackened ring shattered against the stone, releasing a burst of blue fire that raced up the stairs and wrapped around every unfinished breath. The small lights cried out together. The sound drove half the court to its knees. Vera rose inside the blue blaze, her white robes burning at the hem, her face bright with terrible purpose. You think truth makes a kingdom clean? She shouted. Truth makes kingdoms bleed. I kept your weak heirs useful. I kept your throne unchallenged. I made dead breaths serve living power. The oldest blue breath twisted in pain. The pup screamed. Ronan's wolf shadow lunged, but the blue fire split around it and struck Elira instead. She fell to one knee. The song broke. At once, the unfinished breaths began collapsing inward, dragged toward Vera's ruined ring. Their tiny cries became one rising howl. Elira clutched the pup. He was breathing fast now, alive but terrified, the restored pieces inside him shaking apart under the pull. Ronan caught Elira's shoulder. Tell me what to do. Not command. Not suspicion. Trust. Elira looked at him, and through the pain, something steadied. Say their names. His eyes darkened. I do not know them. The court does. Silence spread above. Elira lifted her face toward the moon hall. Every family that buried a first breath, every council mother, every father who let the nursery record burn, say the names. No one moved. Vera laughed. They would rather let her die. Then the oldest blue breath turned toward the court and made a sound like a child trying to breathe through water. A noblewoman near the front collapsed. Arin, she sobbed. The blue breath nearest her flickered. Another man whispered, Mira. Another voice broke. Talon. Then more. Names spilled through the moon hall, hesitant at first, then breaking open like rain through a cracked roof. The unfinished breaths loosened from Vera's blue fire one by one, each name cutting a strand of control. Vera screamed. Silence. Ronan turned toward the court, his voice filling the hall. Speak, or kneel beside her, and admit you fed your children to law. The remaining names came faster. Elira began singing again, but this time she did not pull the breaths into herself. She guided them upward, each one toward the voice that had finally claimed it. The pup's body warmed in her arms. His heartbeat steadied. The crescent cradle mark over Elira's heart opened with white light, not swallowing the blue breaths, but showing them the path beyond the hall, beyond the palace, beyond the grief that had trapped them. Vera staggered backward, suddenly small inside her ruined power. Marielle stepped from the shadows. Her throat still glowed where the collar had cut her, but she stood straight. "My mother buried one," she said. The hall froze. Marielle's voice shook. Her name was Sarah. A blue breath near Vera's shoulder turned white. It flew past Marielle, brushing her cheek like forgiveness she had not earned. The last strand around the unfinished breaths snapped. White moonlight erupted through the moon hall. Vera fell. The pup lifted his head from Elira's arms and gave a clear, living howl. Ronan's wolf shadow bowed to him. Then, slowly, it bowed to Elira. The court saw. Every noble saw. And in the sudden silence, the pup's voice came from Elira's heart one more time. "First Breath Keeper. First Breath Keeper." The title did not fall on Elira like a crown. It entered her like a wound, finally given a name. The moon hall stood silent around her. Nobles who had spent their lives stepping over servant shadows now stared as Ronan's wolf shadow bowed before the girl they had nearly let die. The pup rested in her arms, breathing steadily at last, his silver-white fur no longer threaded with blue sickness. Vera lay on the floor beneath the broken light of her ring. She was not dead. Elira was glad. Death would have made her silent too easily. Ronan walked toward the fallen healer, his sword still in hand. The court parted for him, as if the air itself feared being judged. Vera tried to rise, but the unfinished breaths she had stolen now circled her wrists in pale bands, not burning, not cutting, only holding her where truth could reach her. "You divided my heir," Ronan said. Vera lifted her chin. "I preserved your throne. You stole children's first breaths. I used what your court had already thrown away." The words struck the hall harder, because no one could pretend they were entirely false. Elira looked at the nobles. Some wept, some trembled, some kept their eyes on the floor, as if shame were a place to hide. Ronan's jaw tightened. "Then the court will answer with you." A murmur of terror rose. Vera smiled faintly. "You cannot punish every bloodline that fed this law." "No," Elira said. Every eye turned to her. Her voice was quiet, but the pup lifted his head when she spoke, and the old moonlight in the chamber leaned toward her. "You cannot heal a kingdom by pretending only one hand held the blade." Ronan looked back at her. There was still rage in him, enough to tear the hall apart, but he did not dismiss her. He waited. That waiting shook the court more than shouting would have. Elira stepped forward with the pup in her arms. Let her speak the records, every hidden cradle, every stolen breath, every heir, servant, mother, and moon, nurse, erased from the nursery walls. Vera's expression changed. No, for the first time, the healer sounded afraid. Elira understood why. Execution ended a body. Truth ended a system. The crescent cradle mark over Elira's heart glowed white. The unfinished breaths circled Vera's mouth, and when she tried to close it, the oldest one brushed her lips like frost. Veda gasped. Names came out. Not willingly. Not gently. Oren, Mira, Talon, Sarah, children of noble houses, servant-born wolf-bloods, moon nurse daughters taken into oath cords, tiny heirs whose bodies had failed because healers and councils wanted bloodlines clean enough for politics. The names filled the hall until every polished law in Ravenglen sounded like a grave being opened. Marielle sank to her knees. When Vera spoke Sarah's name again, Marielle covered her face and broke. Elira did not comfort her. Not yet. Some grief had to stand alone before it could become apology. The pup stirred. Ronan turned toward him, and the hardness in his face cracked just enough to reveal the man beneath the king. He reached out slowly this time, not stopping halfway. Elira allowed it. His hand touched the pup's head. The small wolf leaned into him. Ronan closed his eyes. For one breath, the moon hall saw the Alpha King not as throne, law, or terror, but as a man meeting the life he had been told was gone. His wolf shadow curled behind him, vast and whole, no longer hungry. The pup gave a soft sound. Not a word. A living answer. Elira's chest ached with it. Ronan opened his eyes and looked at her. "You carried what I failed to protect. I was forced to carry it. The truth stood between them. He accepted it. Yes. That single word mattered more than any apology he could have shaped for the court. Elira looked down at her bare wrist, where the oath cord had once ruled her. Then, do not make another chain out of gratitude. Ronan's gaze darkened with understanding. He turned to the hall. From this dawn forward, no servant in Ravenglen will wear an oath cord. No nursery law will stand unless the moon nurse records are restored. No Luna will be chosen by stolen breath, council bargain, or jeweled lie. Marielle flinched. Ronan looked at her. Lady Marielle Voss, your house will answer for the collar and the contracts. She bowed her head. Yes, Majesty. Then, after a long breath, she looked at Elira. I wanted what was not mine. Elira held Hergaze, and wore what was not alive enough to refuse. Marielle's face crumpled, but she did not deny it. Vera's names continued spilling into the hall, weaker now, until the silver glass ceiling above them began to glow. One by one, the names appeared there in white fire, not as accusations alone, but as witnesses returned to memory. Elira searched without knowing what she needed. Then she saw it, Vale, her mother's name. Beneath it, another line appeared. Last moon nurse of the hidden cradle. Elira's breath broke. The breath form of her mother appeared one final time beside the moonflower bed. Faint, smiling, almost gone. You brought him home, Saren whispered. Elira shook her head, tears finally falling. I do not know how to be what they are calling me. No woman knows before the first child cries. The pup pressed his warm nose to Elira's heart. Saren's breath form turned to Ronan. Do not worship her. Do not cage her. Stand where she can choose you. Ronan bowed his head. To a servant's dead mother. The court saw that too. When Saren faded, the unfinished breaths rose through the ceiling names and vanished into pale dawnlight. Not erased, released. Only the pup remained. Whole. Alive. Ronan stepped close, but not too close. Elira Vale, first breath keeper, I owe you more than a throne can repay. You owe me nothing that makes me yours. A faint, broken smile touched his mouth. Then I will begin with what is not ownership. He knelt. The Alpha King knelt before the servant girl who had been dragged into the hall as blame. I ask you to stay in Ravenglen as free blood, not bound service, as keeper of the restored nursery, as the woman my wolf recognized before I was brave enough to understand why. The court held its breath. Elira looked at the pup, then at the king kneeling before her. She did not love him yet. Not fully, not safely. But something had begun in the space between his restraint and her refusal to be owned. A dangerous beginning. A true one. Stand, Ronan, she said. He did. The pup lifted his head and gave one clear howl. Every wolf in Ravenglen answered. And as dawn filled the moon hall, Elira Vale stood unbound. The lost moon nurse heir with a living royal pup in her arms, while the kingdom that had blamed her finally learned to kneel before the breath it had tried to bury.